some people are crazy nowadays that they are getting involved in so many things, orgies, and is it that what's that one called again, that the one that you punish yourself, SDM, is it SDM? Some people are getting involved in certain things that
like
that
50 Shades of
whereby
Grey,
they
that type
punish
of
you.
thing. Oh, I
They will
see.
punish you, they will
They
split
will
your
beat you.
legs, they will hang you, and you have to try and escape, and I don't know, all this sort of thing. And some people, homosexuality, and some people are, and whereby maybe they're not like that anymore, and they've now, but they still had some experiences, wanted to do it through the back door. So people have had so many experiences. And
Welcome to What's the Topic podcast. We're back again with a new episode. Today's topic is a little bit different. We're delving into marital talk a little bit here. So we're all married people here. The panel is filled with married people today. So we're going to explore the topic sex before marriage versus sex in marriage, or / sex in marriage. And essentially, the question, it's not really a question, but it's more of a statement. So how is it that we're supposed, as Christians, how are we supposed to navigate the fact that we have so little education or knowledge about sex before marriage, because you're told don't fornicate, don't do this, sex is a no-go area, wait till you're married. And then in marriage, they expect you to be, they expect you to be a professional artist in the area. And you've had no background, no knowledge for some anyways. And if you did have background or knowledge, it's not the right kind of background and knowledge. So essentially, you have to relearn, unlearn, all of that. We're going to talk about the difference between the fact that we don't actually have much education of sex before marriage, and is it lacking in the church how much we actually speak about sex before marriage, and then we wait for it to be in marriage, but you've kind of had a bit of a limbo period, and even when you're in marriage, we don't really dig deep into it. So what is the knowledge of sex that a Christian is supposed to have going into marriage, and what is a healthy balance in terms of how knowledgeable you would be about sex before you enter marriage, so that you don't then fall into temptation and all of that, but then versus the fact that you are a married person, married 5 years, married 8 years, married 1 year, even if that, and you're not a pro in the bedroom.
You're not freaking
so
pigs.
Listen. So how do we navigate that? So I'm going to go around, and I guess my first question will be my first statement is just that, what was your understanding of sex before you got married, and now after, once you did get married, what was the transition like, basically? Since we're all married people, don't go in, I don't want to know what you do in your bedroom, but we just want, so your knowledge and your understanding of it, more or less. Yeah. Do we want to start? Pastor, deaconess. Okay, let's start with the man first.
Come on.
Man of the house. Teach us.
all right, I don't know where to start from, but okay, start from the, what was my understanding before I got married. So my understanding of sex was, really, I guess, I don't know what had to reveal to me, when I was in, secondary school. So at the age of I think 7 or 8, thereabouts, and you have friends who are watching something that they're not supposed to be watching, pornography and weird ones as well. But and then they show you, and at that moment, at that, they showed me, and I didn't know what that was, isn't it? I was like, what's this, isn't it? But, I guess, obviously at that age, I think they've started doing sex education or something like that. You kind of understand that this is what this thing is, isn't it? And as you're watching it, your body's reacting, and it's like, what's going on here? Like, what are they doing? Because I didn't know anything such so-called pornography at that time, innit? So, but as I was obviously introduced to that, I then went further, for myself, I guess, exploring it and really looking at what is this really, what's this, what is it all about? And at that point, I thought, is this really real? And I thought it was real. I thought like, this is crazy, like, and I guess at that point, coming from I guess being a Christian, I wasn't necessarily, I guess I would call myself like a saved believer at that time, isn't it? So, I was still young. I was still kind of growing in my identity, growing in, who I was as a man and as a child of God, so-called, pastor's child. But I guess it was more, I explored it, and it was interesting. And then I started getting involved with, such things as masturbation. And, it was also interested to kind of, that was my introduction to sex.
Wow.
Whereas it should have been maybe as parents talking to you about it and make you understand this thing. But this is not to blame my parents, because obviously they also probably didn't have that understanding that this is what they need to do, which I believe a lot of parents don't, because it's either it's a taboo, it's either how can I talk to about this with my children, it's too early. So I mean, it's not to blame them obviously, but I believe a child's development, as much as we might feel as it might be too early, should the introduction to sex shouldn't be pornography, and shouldn't, because that just perverses it and changes the perspective. The realities of how sex is, especially in the beginning stages, compared to what you've seen in pornography, because that might still like play a part in terms of the way they were enjoying it. This doesn't seem very enjoyable as it is, that you'd be thinking about it. Movies always exaggerate how passionate it is, isn't it? Whereas in the beginning stages for myself, it wasn't any of that. It was just it's a bit uncomfortable, it's a bit this and that. So at first you don't feel like you feel as if this is really the right thing that we should be doing, isn't it? And because all of a sudden now marriage now validates you having sex. So it was just it was it's a paradox. It's just like opposing things that is running through your mind at that time, isn't it? So I would say that that was my perspective.
Okay.
My view.
Yeah, Beatrice, you want to go?
Okay. My own perspective is totally different, because when I was growing up, I didn't even have any knowledge of what sex or anything like that, until when I was around the age of 17 or 16, I started hearing about that, and and I think it's about decision, because I made up my mind that what, I'm not ready for it because of what happened to my mom. I'm not criticizing her for what happened, because I knew that she was young then, she didn't really understand what she was doing and stuff like that. So I determined that, what, before I'm going to have any sex, I want to be married, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to graduate. So I'm not a kind of person that has too much of friends that can influence me, or that will put my mind into those kind of things. So I didn't really, my own perspective of sex is not that much. I didn't, even before, when did I start knowing what nipple is? I was at the age of 18. Because one of my seniors there back in Nigeria asked me, oh, what's nipple? And I was like, nipple. And I said, I don't know what nipple is. And then they called one little girl and they were like, oh, where is your nipple? And then she showed me. That was the day I firstly never. I didn't know what nipple, because it's not that it's not that I don't want to know. It's not that I can't know it, but it's something. There are some things that I taught
weren't
myself that I
exposed to.
don't know. I taught myself that I don't want to know about it.
Okay.
So I restrict myself because then there was no mommy, there was no daddy. We were living with people. My parents were in UK then. So I taught myself that, you know what, I don't want to hear this kind of thing. I don't want to dwell on it, because it's when you dwell in things, that's when you start having knowledge of, okay, this is this, okay, this is how, okay, this girl, put your leg up. So I shut myself out completely, like, you know what, I'm not interested and I'm not interested. So that's my own perspective.
Deaconess, before I go.
Okay. Yeah. My understanding of like sex was, I think I grew up with like 4 brothers, isn't it? So you can imagine, like, sometimes you're not supposed to be. To be fair, my brothers would always ask me to leave the living room. Like, they would chase me away, and I just wanted to do what they were doing. So eventually, like, you just begin to see things that you're not really supposed to see, isn't it? And it's not even necessarily pornography at first, but it's definitely those late night shows that are playing inappropriate things for children, shall we say. So I think that's when I first started to get to know about it. And yeah, I was so intrigued. I was like, what's this? I just want to know. And honestly, it kind of became a never ending I want to know, because you never know. You just continue to know. But it's not like you're getting knowledge. You're just kind of being exposed to all sorts of things, like weird things as well. I don't even know how to describe it from the beginning to the end. Just weird things that you thinking, ew, why would you do that? And I think, you know what, I think depending on like family dynamics as well, that can really influence the type of mentality you start having towards sex, because sex was always this thing that is enjoyable, but coming from a place whereby maybe you're not having that support, that attention and that love from your home, you then go and seek for those things out in the world, isn't it? And so you're now kind of giving yourself away as a young lady to people that are giving you that attention that you never got from home. And it's just literally like, okay, if I meet this person and they're nice to me, then I can show them my nakedness. If I meet this person that they're nice to me, I can do what they want me to do. And that's sort of how it went in my teens. Like, growing up, you start getting attention from guys that you don't even understand. And no one ever really sat me down to explain to me that there are going to be people that just want you for your physical attributes. They're just people that want to satisfy themselves, isn't it? So, I mean, yeah, you listen, you just do what you're not supposed to do. And I lost my virginity, I think, in university, off of, thinking that, yes, if I meet a guy that is like this and they are treating me well compared to the way my family treated me, then we're good to go. And it's funny, because me, I was like, the amount of people that called my husband, oh Jesus.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was literally like, okay, you're my husband. Okay, I don't like you anymore. Okay, you're my husband now. Okay, I don't like you anymore. Okay, you're my husband now. Funnily enough, I called my husband when we were like in year 9, but it was just part of
hubby.
Yeah. No, not hubby, my husband. Yes.
Ah, wow.
Demonic spirit. Anyway, in the time of ignorance, anyway, so many things happen, isn't it? And you're exposed to so many things. So now, when you come into Christ, it's like, oh, whoa, because you understand what it should have been and you didn't follow those steps, but now you still have to reconcile yourself with God and understand that you are not defined by the decisions you took in ignorance. And it was very interesting, actually, coming into a ministry whereby we're so strong on, you must be a virgin, you must be a virgin. Sometimes you're like, eek, I'm not a virgin. Whoopsies. You're like, yeah, praise the Lord, but I feel like a hypocrite a little bit. And you know what? At the end of the day, like, you cannot make your decisions again, but you can definitely choose what decisions you make from the moment you are enlightened with information. So I think from that moment, God started really dealing with me about purity. Because I've already lost my virginity, it's not something I can keep, isn't it? But I can definitely still keep my purity. And I think that journey now led me to understanding my dignity, which is what is in essence virginity. Is in your virginity.
Yeah.
So that's the journey I sort of had. And coming into marriage, like even before marriage, purifying yourself of some of the things you've seen was a real struggle, because in as much as when you're in the presence of God, God is moving mighty, you're like, yes, I'm not my mistakes, I'm not this, I'm not that. Hey, when you begin to think of some of the things you've done, you want to take the brain and throw it away because your mind has registered some things that it cannot get rid of. And I think I just started kind of going on a journey of understanding that I have power over my thoughts. I have power over the things that I allow to manifest in my spirit. And I don't have to allow things to linger. And as much as something comes in, I can easily rebuke it out. So I think I've been on a journey of restoring, not restoring, kind of building a godly relationship with sex, even coming into marriage. I think sometimes, even sometimes you watch pornography and everybody's just, I don't know, they just ejaculate, isn't it? Like, that's like the aim. So it's like, there's no point having sex if somebody's not going to whoop. Sorry, sorry guys, this is for married people only. Don't want to develop it.
Right.
So, coming to understand that, like, sex is more than just that. Sex is more about, it's not just two people coming to pleasure themselves. It's actually what God created for man and woman to do, to make them as one. So it's still definitely a journey. And at the end of the day, it's the Holy Spirit that reveals all things. So I'm the type of person that I will allow the Holy Spirit to talk to me about stuff like that. I know a lot of these Africans say, how can the Holy Spirit talk to you about to kiss your husband? Well, I am definitely of the mind that the Holy Spirit can speak to you in any way about anything, just so much as you're open to it. So that's kind of been my journey from before to
after. Okay, if I could describe mine is I would say it's rather different because I was in the midst of older people. So I was always the younger in the group, if that makes sense. So, and I had a lot of cousins, lot of family. Well, us Congolese people, we call ourselves cousins even when we're not cousins. We're family friends, we still cousins. So I would say I was just around a lot of older. I was always the younger in that set of cousins or set of group or whatever you want to call it. So I would hear a lot of my cousins, my family friends, and just friends' point of views and experiences. And I think I was exposed to a lot so soon, just in hearing so many stories. And I think also there was a lot of inappropriateness sometimes at times, yeah. And the thing is, I was always a bystander. I don't know why, but I would always see them doing nonsense, basically in the midst of cousins or stuff like that, or in the midst of like young kids doing what they're not supposed to be doing at the family party and stuff like that.
When all the adults are
So I think that was my first experiences or my first exposure to sex in itself. And I think even don't let me even leave myself out, like sometimes it's just kids doing what they're not supposed to do. That's why we need to monitor our children. It's not a joke, because you play in ways that you should not be playing, and you entertain yourselves in ways that should. Let's play mommy and daddy. Let's play doctor and nurses. It start with those kind of play that don't make no sense. And you guys are diagnosing each other when you're not a doctor. So yeah, I think that was my first exposure to sex in itself. And also, I had older siblings, so like I said, in a group of cousins, I was always the younger one, but I was in the room when they would talk about their experiences. Like I think the my sister, for example, I would hear her stories. My sister she was an explorer, not like that, but she was just, my sister got a lot of attention early in her youth, and I would say it's because she developed quite early anyways. So she always looked maybe a bit older than she was. And this girl did not fear no foe, in the sense that she liked talking to boys. She's just, she's just free. That's just her personality, if that makes sense. And it's not even to say she always had like relationships, I would say, but I knew everything about her relationships. If it's not that we share room and you're hearing her on the phone, like that's how exposed I was up until we moved to in Dagenham, where we all had our separate rooms. I shared the room with my sister till I was about 15, 16. So listen, I heard her whole teenage years. I was I had the first seat to everything that was ongoing. So you can already imagine that I would hear a lot and know a lot, maybe more than I should have at a certain time, especially because I would say she was a bit advanced in her exposure to it. And it's interesting because one day my auntie and my mom now decided to have a chat with my sister. And I was there again. I so happened to be there. And I think I wasn't sitting with them, but I was in the house and I was definitely listening to the convo, isn't it? And my auntie was basically talking about one of our cousins, I think, that had gotten pregnant and this, that, the other. And they were cautioning my sister that, don't do this, it's not good. And that is the first time I ever heard them having like a sex talk, based talk or whatever. The rest would be, don't let a boy touch you, don't let a boy touch you. They don't go in talking to you about it. But that was the first time. And lo and behold, few weeks I think after we found out my sister was pregnant, I was like, LOL, you guys are late. And that was just my, even when they were talking, I was looking at them like, you don't let this girl know past you people. So it was just, and a few weeks later, and I remember the whole time when my sister got pregnant, like it was a whole thing, like, oh my God, da 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 da. And I was like, in my head, I was looking at all the adults in the family. God forgive me, even my mom and dad, I was y'all are not awake. Like you should have known this was happening. And this was inevitable to me. And it was like, how do parents not really engage and sit you down and have these chats? Like, and somebody as strict as my dad, as strict as you are, don't go out, don't sleep in people's house, don't do this, don't do that. My dad was that kind of dad. He don't allow us to do nothing. But you don't have talk. You don't know how to open your mouth. It's don't do. What do you do? Like, how do you teach your daughter to even be around men? Like, you've not even had that conversation. So I felt a bit like, you know what? You people were sleeping the whole. You've got big teenagers in your house. My sister had a baby at what age? 20, 21, something like that. Wow. So she was a big girl. What did you guys expect? And we don't really go to church like that at the time anyway. We are in and out of church people. So what do we actually expect? So that was my exposure to, I would say, before marriage. So it was all over the place. Different teaching, different understanding, up until the time I gave my life to Christ and, came to church and began to understand that, sex is before marriage. You have to wait until marriage. And it's only God that kept me in the midst of all the conundrum that took place. That I was a bystander. That's why I said, God allowed me to watch people and never be in it. And it's only by the grace of God, I believe. It's not by my mind, my power, because I had no power in any of it. But I would say in marriage now, it was so weird going from a place of distorted understanding of this thing that we call sex, and then all of a sudden you have to just kind of immerse yourself in it. And I think the difference is, and that's what I want us to touch on, that how do we transition? And was it a smooth transition? My own, I would say, it wasn't a smooth transition. Yeah, I desire to have sex with my husband. I desire this, I desire that. But number one, the physical aspect of it, in the sense that it affects every woman differently. And I got pregnant straight away. So there was that as well. So then my hormones kicked into that as well. So there was never really an understanding of how do you actually go into it. And I don't think we have sufficient teaching or sufficient forum to talk about how to actually enjoy sex within marriage, as husband and especially as Christians. Because I think nowadays, yes, there's so much going on out there, and a lot of how sex is perceived and is taught is based on the world. It's based on perversity. Is it, am I saying the right word? Perversity? Perversion. Yeah, it's perverse. Like, it's based on what God never intended sex for. So it's very animalistic out there. Like, listen, people are doing what they want to do, how they want to do it, no matter the consequences. So what I want us to discuss is, what should the transition be like? What would we want our children to benefit from that we didn't benefit from? Because there's this thing of, don't talk too much about it before marriage, because you're going to put seeds in them. But so how much do you talk about it? How much don't you talk about it? What can you say? What can't you say? And when is the right time, especially? So I will start with that transition. How was the transition for us as individuals, I guess?
Honestly, I think one of the things that for me stick out even in all this that we're talking about is there definitely wasn't enough transparency. And I mean that from even being a child. all the way up until you get married. Because I remember like the conversations with my mom especially was, don't sit on the toilet. If you sit on the toilet where a man has peed, you get disease. Then it was, don't allow them to touch you, don't allow them to kiss you, you get pregnant. Then all of a sudden it switched to, I can see from the way you walk that you're not a virgin. Then it switched to, make sure your down there is clean before you get married. It's just so distorted, isn't it? It's all over the place. It's like, what are you on about? There's no consistency, there's no enough. And you know what? When I sit down and speak to my mom now, we had the exact same experience. Lost our virginity at the same age, got married at the same age, got pregnant at the same age, delivered the same way. Exactly the same. Wow. If only there was some transparency, I think that could have even helped somebody transition from before marriage into marriage. At the end of the day, like whether we like it or not, these adults, no matter how they've gone about the journey, they've gone ahead. So they have an upper hand. And that's why I'm saying that there should be transparency, not so much advice, but this is my experience. This is what I learned. Take what you will from it. I don't think there's enough of that. And I think that's what makes it an issue. The only time I saw transparency was with Daddy. Coming into the ministry, seeing a man of God actually speak about where he started from. In a sense, he's speaking of the whole thing of sex and marriage. Is like taking you through his journey of how he developed himself. To come from a place of ignorance, come from a place of doing those things, into coming now to be a man that is one with his wife and understanding what that means. So for me, I think the transition can be helped if we are more transparent. And I pray that we are able to be transparent with our children, not in a biased way, not in a way of do this, do that, but in a way of, let me show you what I learned. Let me show you the mistakes I made so you don't have to make those mistakes. That's one of the things I think could have helped, because the transition was not smooth. Honestly, you think that because you've done it before, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't know where to put it. I don't know that there's clitoris. I don't know that there's stimulation point. I don't know there's G-spot. I don't know nothing. I'm telling you.
Just do it anyhow.
Yeah, I didn't know. Thank God we've had some couples, or one couple that got married before us, isn't it? So they can give you pointers like, we have no clue what's going on. And the reality is, I think this thing of transparency, even amongst husband and wife to be open about the type of experiences they've had with sex. I think that's really important because it enables you to understand where somebody is coming from, and you also know where you're coming from. So if somebody spots along the way that, oh, there's a need for healing, there's a need for forgiving, even forgiving yourself, there's a need for reflecting, there's a need to unlearn, relearn and understand, then you know. But if you've not really had those open conversations about your sexual experiences, you'll never know that.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Now, I'll jump on that in terms of just in the essence that the transparency is very important in premarital, stage, courtship. And, I always remember whenever, me and my wife were in courtship and, we would have conversations about, oh, what have you done? What have you done? All of this, isn't it? I was always, I guess a bit scared or a bit, ashamed to kind of give out all the situation, mainly because I think it was a bit close to home and everything that, I was just like, I would always give it in bits, isn't it?
Listen,
and
Mazo was
eventually
very good
it
at
took,
dropping nuggets.
it took about,
You'll find your way to
it took about
story.
6 months to reveal everything, isn't
Wow.
it? And I don't know how long it took, but I mean, it took a while to reveal everything, isn't it? And the reason why was just because I was feeling a little bit ashamed, a little bit scared, a little bit thinking that she's not maybe gonna like me anymore. She's not gonna want to be with me anymore, isn't it? But thankfully that didn't happen, innit? But it's just that highlights to me all the time that the importance of transparency before you get married. If you've had, some people are crazy nowadays that they are getting involved in so many things, orgies, and is it that what's that one called again? That the one that you punish yourself.
SDM.
SDM. Is it SDM? Some people are getting involved in certain things that.
Like
that
50 Shades of
whether
Grey,
they
that type of
punish
thing.
you,
Oh, I
they will
see.
punish you. They will
They
split
will
your
beat you.
legs. They will hang you, and you have to try and escape. And I don't know, all this sort of thing. And some people, homosexuality, and some people are, and whereby maybe they're not they're not like that anymore, and they've now, but they still had some experiences, you know, wanted to do it through the back door. So people have had so many experiences.
Just
And-
go.
Yeah, no, and
No, some people, yeah,
know,
what he's saying is that people that then have to heal from that,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, exactly. And so, you know, imagine you're with this man who has gone through all of that, and he's not told you anything, and all of a sudden he's trying to stick it through your back, and you're like, what are you doing?
What is that? Not
And
the
it's
right
like,
entrance, bro.
and it's like, no, it's okay, it's okay,
It's
it's
not
okay.
okay.
And you know, and then he's uncomfortable because he feels embarrassed, and you feels like, what's going on? You're uncomfortable because, and then, you know, that could cause a big argument. And so just that is very important. And if you feel as if you've told this person and they are too ashamed to be with you, then maybe they weren't the right person for you. And I believe that transparency really, you know, enables you to take a big step into becoming one. And so, you know, for myself, transitioning into, you know, a marriage, you know, and having sex whereby you didn't, and you know, whereby you were almost about to lose it, but you know, by God's grace, you know, he made a way of escape, isn't it? But it was you know, for me myself, transitioning was always it wasn't a smooth process. It was always a learning process. But initially, I was thinking, why is it like this? It's not as nice. It's not as, you know, straightforward. Yeah, for myself, yeah, I may ejaculate. I may, you know, have an orgasm because, well, as a man, it doesn't take a lot for you to have an orgasm. I mean, it's just simply that's how we're made, isn't it? But for the woman, it's not as easy. You know, it takes a lot of learning process. And I guess, you know, I read one or two books, but I guess it was, you know, I would say that it wasn't sufficient. I believe that, you know, if I had maybe given a lot more attention to reading more books, and understanding it when we know we're about 6 months, 1 year to getting married, when we know that we need to deal with it, because a lot of the things that where you know, people deal with marriage, with it, you know, in terms of sex, can be handled or can be discussed in a premarital counseling. And it's important for you to get all your questions out there, you know, about oral sex, about, you know, things, orgies, about all these things that you want to do, about
no.
oh well,
That's adultery.
but
that's
about,
that's
you know,
demonic.
about, you know, dressing up, all these things, you know, because some things may look innocent on a surface level, but if we go deeper into them, then we may realize that, you know, so, you know, we did some of it, but I wouldn't say all of it. So it was always, and, you know, God bless the man and the woman of God, it was still always a learning curve for us from the beginning. You know, with God's grace, it's only now that we are discovering a little bit more about how we can do certain things, how, you know, a bit more comfortable with doing certain things, how to do this, how to last longer. That's also a thing people won't talk about, isn't it? So it's, you know, it is a journey, and journey not to be ashamed about if you don't get initially, but it is a journey that, you know, if you're patient with it, if you do your due diligence, you know, get some books if you still want to, if you feel like you can, you know,
Christian books.
I can add a little bit of spice on it, get some, you know,
There's a lot out there
perspective.
too.
So, you know, I mean, you know, transition can be easier when you have the right resources. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Pastor said about transparency, because even parents also need to be transparent with their children.
Yeah.
Because especially me, when I didn't have parents, then my parents, they are alive, but they were not
not
living
around,
together.
Yeah.
So people that I was living with is like, there's always accusation of, oh, you've slept with somebody, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even have understanding of sex, talk less of kissing, talk less of doing this.
Opening your leg.
Yeah, so it's like
not
every
possible.
time if I'm sick, oh, you're pregnant, we're going to do pregnancy test, and you're wondering like, what's pregnancy test? I don't understand. I didn't even have idea of what is going on. But now when I'm now recalling, it's like, so this is what
they were talking
this
about.
is what they were talking about. This is what they're trying to do. Oh, if I'm throwing up, oh, you're pregnant. If this, oh, you're pregnant. So parents need to be a bit, or if you're a guidance, please, parents, they need to be a bit of communication, transparency. Speak to them.
Yeah.
Educate, don't accuse. Educate is very, very important, because when my sister was talking about her sister's experience of how the mom had conversation with the sister. If it was earlier, that could have been avoided.
Definitely.
Instead of hiding it, oh, this is not the time, this is not this. The moment you know that your child is mature, let us start talking about it. Start speaking to them about it. Enlighten them. Tell them the importance of their virginity. Tell them the importance of their body. It's not meant to be given to anybody
What age
anyhow.
would you say is mature then?
I think it depends, because it depends on the child.
I was just gonna say that I think we need to do it before even they mature, just before, at least have an introduction to it, because whether we like it or not, they're teaching it in schools from
Definitely.
11,
I learned
11
about
years
sex
old.
education when I was in year 5.
Yeah, some people 10, 11, even
Yeah,
9,
we learn it
8.
from primary school.
And you know, in primary school, some children will show your children some things on the paper. Nowadays, these children have phones. You know, back in those days, you might not even be able to have phone in primary. Now in primary, kids have phone videos like the latest. So I do think we need to have. You know, it's funny. My daughter asked me a question the other day, and I was like, I don't know how to answer this. And it was like, you know, because I was saying that I was referring to maybe her dad bathing with her baby brother, isn't it? And she was like, I want to bath with them, and I was just like. I was trying to explain something, but it wasn't really relaying. I was trying to say, oh, you know, he's a boy. And then she was like, no, but I want to bath with my daddy too. And then I understand it would be okay in a certain context, don't get me wrong. And I didn't want to sexualize that for her, but I was like, so she said, I can only bath with ladies then. And I was like, no, well, you know, it was like, don't let me begin to say what I can't recover, this, that, the other. But in essence, what we're trying to say is that, you know what, these kids are more advanced than we even were
Definitely.
when we were children.
They're
So
smart,
I want to start also having conversation. Even that she's 3 years old. I'm not talking about as a 6-year-old, but understanding of even sometimes as a guy is my friend. Like she's calling some boy's friend. I still have. Let us start teaching what we want them to understand now. You don't. I don't have to talk to her about sex now, but I can talk to her about the relationship of husband and wife, which is her mom and dad, because she sees that, she understands that. So let me now relate to her. And there's something sometimes she will say, oh, because of mommy and daddy. She knows, what that
You're
expectation
the best
is.
person to speak to her about it.
And we are the best example for it as well.
Don't let them catch you.
So,
Jesus Christ.
listen, and you know that's the thing, because they will understand past what you even think they understand.
Yeah, I know most
So praise the Lord. So what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, it's so interesting that we actually have to implement it from an early stage. It's gone that deep because of the perversity in this world. We have to actually implement it from such an early stage. And they say, train up a child in the way of the Lord and they will never depart from it. The training starts from a tender age these days, because they are throwing it at them. Even some TV adverts, some TV shows,
Some YouTube adverts are terrible.
Forget YouTube. Even sometimes the morning the cartoons they play, like the adverts, you'll be seeing what you don't even expect a small child to see, and they're flickering. What's interesting, they sometimes flick through it, so you don't even see that your child already caught their eye on it.
Wow.
So it's quite interesting that we actually have to be so intentional about what we want to deposit in the life of our children, and for their transition to be a bit smoother. If it's something they learn progressively, if it's something they already know about, when a friend at school come and tell them something they're not supposed to do, they will be able to say, no, that's not what you do. My mom and dad said, well, we've learned this, we've learned that. We wait till marriage. We don't do this. You're not allowed to touch my breast. Sorry, my breasts are for me and Jesus right now.
Come on.
You know, you want, and
Come on.
those phrases will only come out from a child that has understanding of what they are talking about. You know, if you just teach it on the surface level, they will only know on the surface. If you teach in-depth understanding, they will know in-depth to the point whereby they will now be the ones teaching their friends. Let me tell you something. When I get married with my husband, this is what we're going to be doing. Right now, I'm not a married lady. I can't be doing this, and you shouldn't be doing it either. Let them give it to their friends too.
That's what needs to happen.
And I believe that what we're talking about, the roles, our parents did what they could with what they had, isn't it? But I still stand by the fact that even the church now needs to do more. Talking about relationship is good and all of that, but we also need to have sex seminars for younger people. We need to have sex seminars for about to be married people, and we need to have more sex seminars for married people, because there's so many marriages, Christian marriages, that are suffering from lack of enjoying their sex lives. Like, you're just enduring sex, you're not enjoying sex, which is not supposed to be. And it's because there's no teaching behind it, there's no follow-up behind it. The same way, why would we learn about loving our wives and learn how to love your wife, learn how to love your husband, but you don't learn how to do intimacy? It doesn't really make sense.
It's not about necessarily, because if you want to talk about it, you have to also have a level of transparency and detail. It's not just say sex is good, it should be done in marriage, and that's it, isn't it? No, but if which is then why you can't just talk about that in a whole congregation, whereas you should have meetings together. And even, for example, when you're single, and you're maybe looking to find someone, it should include a level even more detail. Not necessarily the whole detail, but a little bit more detail. Now, when two people or a few of you are about to get married, now it should include a little bit more detail, things that we will. And then whilst you're married, it should, that's what I'm saying. There's layers to how much that can be revealed all at once. The onus, I believe, especially with children, should, for you as parents, should be the one to to give them the detail, if that detail is not given in church.
But what if they're not getting it from their parents?
No, but that's what I'm saying. The parents should be able to give it to them.
Parents are not like that.
Yeah, but that's
but
what I'm
we're talking
saying.
about
But
our
then
parents.
the church will still fail to kind of reach out to those that don't have that from their parents. That's what I'm trying to say, that churches should also get to a stage
but that's what I'm
whereby
saying.
we have like special, whether in the year or whatever, you have a special time dedicated to discussing that topic. Because in the same way we discuss every other topic in the Word of God, that should be a topic that's also discussed. And the fact is, in no less than year 9 or around that year 9 stage, they teach you how to put condom. They give you condom. They do year 7, year 8, 9, even 7.
That's why I'm
they
saying
teach
that.
you how to put it on. They will show you video.
Yeah.
As a lady, they show you video as well.
Most people that doesn't have, I'm saying most people that I believe go to school have guardians in it. I'm not saying everybody has the physical parents with them, but have a guardian, isn't it? And obviously, we're talking about Christian perspective. Obviously, in the outside world, because I even believe people in the unbelievers normally just talk about it loosely, isn't it?
They don't. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I believe this is why, because, like I said, the church, first of all, as an onus on safety, I do believe the church should do some sort of form of sex education.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Maybe making you to understand. Like I said, there's gonna be a level of detail. Yeah. So you, for example, a level of detail. For example, if children are there, singers, that detail would maybe involve, talking about condoms, talking about this, talking about, basically whatever the school is talking about on the surface level. Because as much as they say that it gets to year 9 before they start talking about that, they don't start talking about condoms, stuff like that, when you're in year 6. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Whichever year they start from, innit? It's not from year 3 that
of course
that's
not.
what I'm saying. So that while kids are there, you can't just start talking about that, isn't it? While if you have a certain environment, for example, age 13 and over, then you can start talking about condoms. You can start talking about this is what people are playing with, and you refute and uprooting those plants that the school is doing, isn't it? And then when you get to that year 11, they start talking about the real sense of sexual intercourse and what happens and how people do it, isn't it? That's when you have that group of people. Then you can really start going into detail about those things with those people who are near that age, in that sense, isn't it? So because I tell you, because as much as it says sex education, doesn't mean that you should go and do it. People, it's sex education, isn't it? But some people will see it and be like, that's interesting, I want to explore more. That's interesting, I want to explore more. That's interesting, I want to explore more. It could, that curiosity with the church, it's a lack of, and also too much at once can cause that curiosity that might be, that seed that might be dangerous in a sense, isn't it? I know it's a bit of a balance, isn't it? But I do believe that's why the church definitely needs to do more, but I guess they have not gotten that balance in terms of how they should do it. And I believe that as our generation is uprising, we are the ones to really try to bring this balance out. Obviously, it might be difficult at first, it might be awkward at first, but when we start ironing out this balance, then we know how we can deal with this. I think I mean, there's a lot more to discuss about this topic, isn't it? Which I think we'll do a part 2 of it. But
definitely. I think with what you said is true. There's definitely we don't want to do too much too quickly, and we don't want to do too little too late. I think that's the balance of it all. But I think so. If we say should sex before marriage be discussed, then it's a yes.
Yes,
Before marriage,
definitely.
and we do need to be a bit more educated. We do need to educate a bit more on the topic as a body of Christ, because otherwise we lose people before we've even got into the marriage stage. And that's why some people are having a difficult relationship with sex in marriage because of what they carried in marriage, into marriage, or lack of knowledge, lack of understanding from before marriage. You can't say. It's interesting because we expect to be everything that a wife and a husband should be before we get married. In the sense, you begin to bring out those virtues, like be respectful, be this, be a woman that can be a homemaker, be that, like as a husband, be responsible, be loving, this, that, the other. So how much more, even in that area of intimacy, prepare yourself for it. So you do need to have a healthy understanding of what sex is, because nowadays sex is not healthy. The way it's being broadcasted and portrayed on social media and on TV, it's too much. People are having issues with it and struggling with it and need deliverance from this, that,
And
the
it's
other.
also making people to have expectation as well.
Exactly, there's expectations as well, and there's even the understanding of your spouse navigating you through that. Whether a man or a woman, would your spouse have patience? Would your spouse have understanding? Because you go from no to yeah. So what's the ratio? What's the balance?
I honestly think that honestly, I know we know what the Bible says, isn't it, about the dynamics of marriage. You know that the man is the head of the home, the woman is the helper, the helpmate, blah blah blah. But I think because sex is so key, I really feel like a man needs to take the lead. I feel like we are having a generation whereby the devil has attacked the male and perverted the mind of the male, so that when he now gets into marriage, it's like the whole family's perception is perverted. Whereas if the man is purified, he can now lead a woman who is perverse into purity. Whereas when a woman is pure and the man is not, it is more difficult for her to lead the man into purity. And I know I sound like, oh yeah, playing the blame game. I'm really not trying to. I'm literally just trying to think of how we can also come to a point of restoring healthy healthy sexual marriages, whereby you enjoy yourself. Sometimes you even think, all these people in the world, they're having more fun than people that are married. What's going on? Why? It shouldn't be like that. We know that the devil already raises his ugly head because there are kingdom marriages that are being established. That's besides the point. That does not mean that we should not be enjoying ourselves. That does not mean we should not be having sex. But sex has become what is like a chore. What is like, you don't think about sex as a way to resolve an argument. People don't want. People will say, I don't want pity sex. People say, I don't want you to have sex with me because you feel sorry for me or because you have to. Oh, I'm only having sex with you because they said before I get married.
As a tool of
it
aggression
shouldn't be.
towards the husband.
And even a man too, knowing that depending on what he does will determine the way that the wife will respond to sex. You see, there's manipulation from each way, isn't it? Because you know that if I'm nice to her, I know what I will get. So let me be nice to her because I know what I'm going to get. And the woman too saying, well, he's been horrible to me, I'm not going to give it to him. Whereby we don't understand that sex has been given as marriage is given for us to become one. So where we are divided, where we are in two minds, it is sex that brings us back together, but we don't understand that. So I really feel like it has to become the responsibility of a man to ensure that purity is preserved in his bed, because at the end of the day, he is the one that is leading the home. And if perversity is found in him, I don't know how the rest of the household can be pure.